So I think we've got some more clarification, so great discussion. So our last item is Deb, accountability update.
Come on back, Deb.
Molly's not here. Oh, there's Molly. Oh, Molly is here. Molly, I didn't know you were here.
Would I miss this?
Oh.
I knew I should have stayed up here, right? Yeah.
And we always put you last. I apologize for that. Go
It's
ahead.
okay, we enjoy it. So
I believe you have a handout.
you do have a handout. We did submit a memo for an accountability panel update. This is just a quick summary of the work that's been going on since the last informational meeting or information we've provided to the board. Work has been underway. We continue to work DOE as well as CECI to provide additional data and analysis for the recommended accountability model. Currently, we're working on growth. We've been working on the categorical improvement component with Damien, adjusting the subcategories and the cuts, which Damien Benner has been validating for us. We're continuing to also do work and analysis on the value tables and points, working to improve the correlations between the improvement component and the achievement component. It's currently too high for our expectations. We're hoping to get those correlations lower. And again, this is a correlation between this categorical improvement component and achievement itself, meaning that the two are very highly correlated at this time. This is not a unique number. It's highly correlated to the achievement number at this time, so we're trying to work to lower that correlation. We also want to note that at this time, those correlations are high without the targeted component included, so we are working on that component as well. And again, Dr. Benner is doing that work for us at this time. We also wanted to move into subcommittees. Outcome of the last A through F accountability panel, they did recommend the use of subcommittees of that panel to more closely evaluate certain components, make recommendations back to the panel on what should be included in the indicators, as well as what the metrics should be. You notice starting on page 1 and going into page 2, we outline the 3 subcommittees that have been recommended. The first one is a high school subcommittee to evaluate graduation improvement, college and career readiness improvement, as well as college and career readiness indicators. 3 things we're looking to do here is for graduation improvement, provide a recommendation for what that calculation should be and what that metric should look like. College career readiness indicators, continue to review the list and provide recommendations on additional indicators. And then finally, college and career readiness improvement, provide recommendations and methodology for calculating that improvement component. For this particular subgroup, we hope to use 1 panel member to lead it, 1 to 2 panel members to participate in the group, DWD, Commission for Higher Ed, CTE, College Board, and other stakeholders. So again, a more specialized group that can look a little deeper into these recommendations or into each of these components and provide that recommendation back to the larger panel. Second subcommittee that we have listed on here is additional performance indicators. These are other indicators reviewing the A through F framework and provide recommendations for alternative measures not related to standardized testing. Again, on the A through F recommendation currently on the framework, all of the components for elementary middle school are related directly to standardized testing. So the purpose of this subcommittee would be to continue to review other indicators and what else could be included, especially for elementary middle school, but can include high school as well. Excuse me. Finally, we have the alternative accountability measures. This is the alternative accountability system that has been enacted by, and I don't remember a recent House bill. What's that? This is to review current A through F methodology, see which schools this is actually applicable to, and provide recommendations for these calculations. For this committee, we hope to utilize 1 member of the group to lead, 1 to 2 additional members of the panel to serve in the subcommittee, DOE graduation cohort SMEs, and then alternative accountability stakeholders. Again, after identifying which schools actually are eligible for this alternative accountability. Pages 3 through 5, we've really just outlined which components of the accountability system have been reviewed, which components are complete, and what work is still in progress. So on page 3, you'll notice that this is really the performance components. English language arts, math, reading, and graduation, we feel we have very strong recommendations and that the work of the accountability panel is really complete in these areas. College career readiness, we do have some additional review work to do under the performance indicators to determine if we want to expand that list and what else may be included in the list for college and career readiness indicators. Excuse me, if you remember at this time, there's 4 indicators of college and career readiness. So this work is really to indicate whether or not that should be expanded to 5, 6, however many indicators. Again, we want to bring in DWD, Commission for Higher Ed, to inform what other indicators we could potentially use in that category. Page 4, we go into growth. I think we covered a little bit about growth, or quite a bit about growth, the ongoing work on growth. All of the growth work is in progress, except for the one component, interim component for high school. Until which time we are actually testing all grades 3 through 10, or 3 through 11, or whatever grades we're testing, 10th grade growth is actually more of an improvement component. We can't compare ISTEP to ECA for a growth measure. So instead we have this improvement measure of indicating what % of those students that tested both 8th grade and 10th grade improved overall. It's not even, it's not even by student. It's what % of those students passed in 8th grade, what % of that same group of students passed in 10th grade. If it increased, they showed improvement. So that's what we want to call an interim component until which time we actually have growth for high school as well. Ideally, as we move through this transition, we will eventually have a similar growth component for high school that we have for elementary, middle school. But that will take changes to testing first. And finally, on page 5, I do actually have the HEA number referenced. For alternative accountability, it's HEA 1028, which changes which schools are eligible for alternative accountability. Excuse me. We have proposed, again, a subcommittee to continue to review this. HEA 1028 is pretty prescriptive as far as what components need to be in the accountability model for alternative accountability, but we do want to provide an opportunity to have the stakeholders recognize the impact as well as provide some recommendations for how this measure should be incorporated.
Brad?
Just, and I don't really know who this question's for, so I'll start here and we'll kind of see. But what point in this process do you see the discussion going on in the subcommittee on assessment and discussion on A to F having a nexus?
Do you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah, it's interesting because we actually spent some time on Friday kind of timelining things out a little bit, and I think we would probably say that that would be actually as early as this summer that we'd start talking about where that nexus comes into play. And I think part of that is, as kind of a preliminary, taste of what's going on is why Debbie and I came to talk to the subcommittee last time they met. But I think based on the timeline that we kind of put together, it would be as soon as kind of when the RFPs are coming back to be able to start talking about, okay, well, this is what the accountability panel is recommending. This is what we're looking at for assessments.
Can I follow up on that just for a second? Because you're going right where my concern is does that, it seems to me like that conversation would need to happen before the RFP is written in its final draft and issued, because if certain assumptions exist on A to F, you would want that reflected, I would think, in the RFP to the vendor.
I think it may even be actually reflected even in the RFI that we talked about.
Correct.
Michelle's been pretty closely involved with the discussions and the work.
Okay.
And so some of the RFI presentations, we kind of couched in terms of what the, I guess, what do we call them, Debbie, the assumptions for A through F. And then the RFP, would certainly have to capture the assumptions for A
And I
through F.
apologize, when we're hitting so many topics,
It's a lot of stuff.
it's so hard for me
Yeah.
to keep it all right
That-
there. I
that's-
just want to make sure we don't
No,
forget
I'm
about
glad you asked that
because
question. Yeah,
down the road,
absolutely.
we'll regret if we didn't think about that. I'm glad to hear you guys
It's a
talk
great
about it.
question.
Okay.
So in addition to that, I just want to make sure that the accountability system itself is not dependent upon an assessment piece.
That's right.
I just want to make sure that that's clear, that the system itself for accountability, whatever the assessment is, we will have to adjust calculation pieces, of course, but it's not built upon having a certain assessment.
Right, no question, but I think
Correct.
you can understand why I'm asking the
Sure.
question, because if you're gonna
Oh,
farm
yeah.
out to vendors,
Sure you do.
wanna make sure you build something that's gonna generate metrics
Sure,
that create valid data F scores in the
most
end, so-
definitely.
Absolutely. And changes in the assessment will definitely directly affect the work within growth in particular. Again, all the work in growth at this point is being baselined off of historical ISTEP data that we have. So obviously this work in growth, in the growth area will have to be duplicated at least once, probably twice, potentially even 3 times as we work through this transition period and finally get into solid historical data under the new test as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no other items on our agenda, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting. Thank you, Tony. This,
Now it's official.
this meeting is adjourned.
Tony has spoken.
This meeting's adjourned. Let's reconvene the assessment committee at 2 o'clock. Gives us about 45 minutes for lunch. Thank you.